frequently on the airshow circuit of most summers, but the radio's behind me now, crackling into action, and it's going to be pretty non-stop now for the next 3.5 hours or so. And a wonderful, wonderful mix of aircraft, from light trainers to historic vintage warbirds to obviously mighty jets, the front end operational face of the Royal Air Force with the mighty Typhoon, and going right through to our national team. But one of the greatest welcomes we made yesterday was to the airmen from the Republic of Korea Air Force, who are here in Britain for the next 2 weeks with the Black Eagles, and they treated us to a most spectacular series of formation changes and flypaths yesterday, and it was an utter pleasure to have them, and absolutely unique that they should be joining us later on today. But keep your eyes peeled now, running in from the right-hand side, the familiar sight and sound of 6 Merlins in formation, led by the Lancaster and flanked by the wonderful and iconic Hurricane and Spitfire. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please give your warmest welcome, wave, shout, whatever you've got, to the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight. What a fantastic sight that is to bring these aircraft in to open up this second day of a magnificent show, and our grateful thanks to all the team behind the Sefton Council, Mark and other ladies who put so much effort into getting this back on the road. It is certainly great to be back in Southport, and you're all very welcome, and I hope we'll have a great day out. This outstanding formation will pass you once more. Before then breaking, the fighters will break off, and each one of them will then give you an opportunity to relish in its outrageous success, and of course the ultimate design of British ingenuity, harnessed by the outstanding success, of course, of the Rolls-Royce engine manufacturers as well. They drift off towards Blackpool, where they've been based this weekend. They'll shortly split the formation. Stand by for that.
Fighters, break, go.
And there you see, you'll hear those sounds throughout the course of the day, where the cadence and initiative and focus of the leaders of each of the formations absolutely key to the safe flying display, which then continues afterwards. So as one pair breaks to the right, a solo treat coming up, and then each one displaying in its own might and majesty. The Lancaster, of course, one of the most famous and successful heavy bombers of World War II, a legend that lives on today, and the contribution made by that aircraft and its crew to the freedom of our nation will hopefully never be forgotten. But first on parade, the outstanding Hurricane. Aircraft built for war, and of course bearing the brunt of the early days, it fielded in numbers of approximately 2-1 at the outbreak of the Battle of Britain, soon to be replaced by the outstanding speed and elan of the Spitfire. waiting now for the bomber. Clear the stage. Look high up to your left-hand side now. In the hands there, Squadron Leader Mark Sugden. An utterly outstanding sight indeed, something that we will relish for time immemorial. Produced in greater numbers than any other British combat aircraft before or since the war. Well over 20,000 Spitfires were built in 22 variants. They remained in production for 12 years. A phenomenal success story, and how sad it was in many ways that R.J. Mitchell, the innovative designer, and his team behind this were unable to see the outrageous success. Prototype first flew in March 1936, of course, following the equally outrageous success of the Snyder Trophy and the early designs which led to this remarkable elliptical feature, a very thin wing enabling it to get high speeds, but of course just keeping enough space there for the all-important undercarriage. And initially the 303 Brownings, and then followed by the cannons, which made such a difference to its fighting capabilities. Particular aircraft built at Castle Bromwich and allocated to the newly formed 443 Hornet Squadron. It was manned by the Royal Canadian Air Force at Digby in Lincolnshire, before moving on to an airbase down near Bournemouth and then to West Hampnett, now famously referred to as Goodwood. Flew its first operational mission in April 1944. Which was a fighter sweep over France at the time, piloted by a young 20-year-old Canadian who'd flown 19 operations on this particular aircraft. Had a colourful career, of course. It was damaged on occasions by enemy fire, and also suffered a wheels-up landing. Just hear the aircrew there chatting to each other. Important to get tally on your opposite number, so that of course they are absolutely sure the stage is clear. But in the hands of these extremely competent pilots, Mark himself joined the Air Force in 2001 and went on to fly the Tornado F3 from Newcastle, participating in many operations overseas, and then spent time as a UFI flying engineer. By the end of the war, the Spitfire carried an engine producing more than twice the power of the original, and we're going to see one of those a little later on this afternoon. Its maximum takeoff weight and rate of climb have more than doubled, and its firepower had increased by a factor of 5. And what a magnificent victory roll there. Keep your eyes peeled to the right, coming in fast and slow. I should say low, certainly not slow. The venerable Hurricane. Very special aircraft this, the very last Hurricane ever built, and that was out of a total of 14,500. Rolled out of the Hawker production line at Langley in July 1944, with the inscription on the side of it, "The last of the many." Hawkers bought it back because they were keen to preserve this last one, of course. It flew in the King's Cup in 1950, flown by the well-known Group Captain Peter Townsend, and featured in several other activities and races from there on. many of the warbirds, it was brought back into service to appear in the film The Battle of Britain, and after a complete overhaul was then presented back to the Royal Air Force to the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, where it is keenly nurtured and preserved for our benefit. All the aircraft, of course, based at Royal Air Force Collinsby, basically the headquarters of Typhoon activity and training and development, and of course as their display pilot, who you'll see later on today, but flown today by that station commander, good Captain Matt Peterson. And all these aircraft, bar two, the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight only has two routine serving officers, the rest all volunteers, again like many of us, giving up their weekends to display and commemorate the past that these aircraft were so closely involved in. Dependable Hurricanes scored more German kills and had a turnaround time of only 9 minutes compared to the 26 minutes required to rearm a Spitfire. Of course, the Spitfire putting fear into the enemy aircraft with its amazing, dazzling performance, flash, speed and agility, making it the ultimate symbol of the battle. Battle which began on this day 82 years ago and lasted 114 days. Completing another fabulous victory roll, something you can savour all day long, particularly in this beautiful, beautiful outlook we have here today. That cloud evaporating wonderfully just in time for us, the wind just keeping a cool breeze going. Could not be more perfect. As the hurricane clears, we're just now looking out for the return of the Lancaster. And here, looking out to your left-hand side, coming low, what a magnificent sight the mighty Lancaster is. Upper Alpha 474, just one of only two Lancasters that remain in an airworthy condition out of 7,377 that were built. The other one, some of you may have seen some years back, is based in Canada. This aircraft was built at the Vickers Armstrong Broughton factory, so not too far away at Hardham, where some of our aircraft were also based this weekend. It was completed in May 1945. Commanding hands of Flight Lieutenant Paul Wise, or Ernie as he's known to his mates. Huge amount of experience, joined the Air Force back in 1999. Initially as a technician, it just goes to show the progress many of you can make, you youngsters out there, even if you don't get to pilot first time. There are plenty of opportunities to pick that up later on, and Ernie went on to get trained, streamed, and went through officer training as well, and ended up with the Hercules Tactical Air Transport role, and then as a QFI on elementary flying training before being reacquainted with the Hercules C-130J at Rise Norton. Alongside him today is Flight Lieutenant Neil Farrell. As well as those who flew the aircraft and the marvellous Rolls-Royce engines that were developed to power them all. Of course, there were outstanding designers as well. We mentioned R.J. Mitchell and his work with the Spitfire, but Sidney Camp's incredible achievements went on for so many years, from the Hurricane all the way through to the Harrier. And Roy Chadwick, his development work on the Lancaster led through eventually to the massive achievement of the Vulcan, which sadly now based back at Finningley in Yorkshire, but we all had the pleasure of seeing for so many years during that outstanding restoration work. The performance of the Lancaster, absolutely outstanding. It could carry a maximum bomb load of 22,000 pounds at a maximum speed of 275 miles an hour at 15,000 feet, but it could cruise at 200 miles an hour routinely above altitudes of 20,000 feet. Its ruggedness, reliability, and to many its sheer charisma endeared it to its crews. And lest we forget ourselves, the motto of the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, the 125,000 aircrew who served in Bomber Command during World War II, over 73,700 of them became casualties. They were either killed, wounded, shot down, or made prisoners of war. Of the fighter boys, there were over 2,000 of them involved, but 574 of them were not even British. The average age of them just 22, the average life expectancy just 4 weeks.